This is a Global Original Podcast. As you can hear from the echoey sound of my voice, I'm recording this from the cupboard where the government keeps its compassion. It's completely empty. Coming up, I get schooled by people who don't know what they're talking about. We save the world by energising the kids and dodge some incoming gobbledygook. But first, I got a face full of builder's dust when I dropped off some rubble at a dump in early 2019, and I was whining about it. And then the conversation turned to coal mining and all things climate-y. Here's Colin Croydon. Hello, Terry.
Hiya.
Terry.
Yeah, I just wanted to remonstrate with you on coal mining.
Coal mining. Mm.
Yeah, well, although deep coal mining stopped in December 2015,
Yes.
the first new deep coal mines opening up in Cumbria in the next 2 years.
How do you know that?
Be mining, well, I'm reading it off the Guardian article.
Oh, the Guardian. Oh, we should have said.
But it's interesting that it's going to replace imports from US and Canada and other places worldwide.
Why on earth are we looking backwards? That seems ridiculous to me.
Well, we use some coal for things.
Yeah, some.
We use it in some power stations.
Yeah.
We don't use very much. To be honest, it's countries like Germany that use a huge amount of coal, and Poland. 80% of their power input is coal.
Is it? Well, come on, Polish people, keep up. Let's try and step into the new millennium. You might like it.
But there is some comfort in the fact that 20 years ago, coal made up 38%, right, of global energy production. And today, it's still 38%.
Yeah, well, that's because the West is gradually weaning itself off it, but people people with less, less. Oh God! Here we go again. My whatever was in that dust is actually making my brain seize up. With less forward-thinking leaders, they're going back to coal.
Yeah, but the thing is that Germany hasn't dropped one bag of nutty slack in the last 20 years either. It's actually using more lignite now than it did 20 years ago.
Right.
And they've given themselves another 20 years to get it down to the levels that we're at.
Right. Well, whatever you do, please don't say the phrase nutty slack any further.
Okay.
Promise me that you won't do that. All right. Well, thanks for the educating, Terry. We appreciate it. Yeah, some countries are reducing their dependence on coal, like this one, for instance. Other countries with less advanced leaders are going back to it.
Oh, shut up!
Mentioning no names. Totally clean coal, as though there is such a thing. He's an idiot. And I mean that with the greatest respect to the office of the President of the United States of America. Well, it's a current incumbent, anyway. No, I've read that one. Jane says, nothing changes. Remainers are still so naive. The European plan promotes overpopulation. I'll read it as it's written. Nick, full stop. Nothing changes, full stop. Remainers are still so naive, full stop. The European plan promotes, full stop. Overpopulation of Europe causing civil, full stop. Wars, then nuclear war, full stop, with even silly them with their plan, full stop, getting it. Well, that makes as much sense as anything else that we've heard on this show so far. Drusy says, the standard of callers tonight is at an all-time high. I'm glad I decided to tune in instead of watching repeats of Robin's Nest. Robin's Nest. God, that wasn't funny the first time around. What are they repeating that for? In want of material, I would imagine. Let's have a call in Brixton. Hello, Simon.
Oh, hello, Nick. Great show. Was that previous message a telegram? You kept saying stop. It sounded like a telegram.
Yeah, it did. It's exactly right, yeah.
Previous caller as well. I think that lignite. Yeah, I'm an environmentalist, but sort of the Green Party in Germany insisted they close down all their nuclear power stations, and then they went, fine, we'll do that. We'll start burning more coal. So I think that's ridiculous, the Fukushima thing, which led them to do that. So I think they should turn on the nuclear power stations and stop burning coal, frankly.
Right. Well, I don't know anything about that, so I'll just have to take your word for it.
Fair enough. Yeah, I was going to say about the trickle-down economics thing. I think it does work. Yeah, I think about, like, you know, my grandparents who would, like, my nan would, like, polish doorsteps at the age of 15, and there's no central heating, and then my parents, I don't think they had central heating when they're very young, and now everyone's got televisions, people have got Netflix. You know, you might say wages are the same, but...
Wages are the same, or less, and the things that are important in our lives, like putting a roof over our head, that's gone through the roof. Well, through the roof. Putting a roof over our head has gone through the roof.
Well, that's true, but then people do have Netflix, so...
Right. Well, as long as we're talking about the important things, Simon. By the way, Germany gets about 11% of its power from nuclear, so just disregard everything that bloke just said. Justine says, Game of Thrones, Nick Abbot is Game of Moans. I'm looking forward to it, but I'm going to have to watch it live. See, I would like to be able to record all of them and then watch them all at the same time. It's just better that way. Binge watching is better. This thing where you got to wait a week until the next episode is very, very annoying. But we won't be able to binge watch it. We won't be able to record it all and then watch Game of Thrones at the very end, because there'll be spoilers in the papers every single day. The Daily Mail has been busting a gut to try to find out something about the programme to spoil it for us. They just seem to be obsessed with it. What is wrong with them? So yeah, I'm going to have to watch it live, pretty much. I think they're starting it at 2 o'clock in the morning, aren't they? Tomorrow night, I think it's 2 in the morning, presumably because they want to show it either at the same time or immediately after they show it in America, in order to avoid spoilers over here. But there's no way I'm going to stay up that late. That's just daft. I'll just have to avoid the news all day long, which seems ridiculous. It's just a television program, and most people haven't seen it. It's on satellite. I mean, the audience for this Game of Thrones, which is, you know, the biggest TV program in the world by the amount of news coverage it gets anyway, is the audience is tiny by comparison to I don't know, EastEnders. Why does anybody watch that, really? EastEnders and Coronation Street. It's just a mystery why anybody watches that. I just don't get it. I mean, from that funereal march that starts the programme, I mean, it's just so miserable. I mean, why would you watch anything after that? Painful. I'd watch Robin's Nest rather than watch that. Robert says, feel like you've been poisoned. You've spent the last 5 years lampooning Vlad the Insaner and little Kimmy Rocket Man. You're on borrowed time, champ. Well, that's exactly what I thought. Yeah. It's Vlad the Insaner's fault. He must be the mastermind behind this. Oh, no, it's no problem. Aurora email. Aurora. If that is your real name. He or she says, or it, perhaps. Maybe your cough is a symptom of your Trump Tourette's. Stop talking about President Trump. Maybe it will go away. Just a suggestion. Well, if I stop talking about him, maybe he will go away. Wouldn't that be great?
Wouldn't it? Coming up, I march a youth to the polling station, and back in spring 2019, there was news of a Swedish-led environment movement that was sailing our way.
Aurora email. Oh, no, I read that. Maybe your cough is a symptom of your Tourette, says Aurora. And Patrick called in to say Aurora is a female name. Well, maybe. Maybe it was a misprint. Maybe it's an aura. Maybe the person is neither female nor male. Maybe they're identifying as a mist. 0345. I had no idea I was going to say that. 0345 6060 973. You can text 84850. Email nicka@lbc.co.uk, and if you're on Twitter, it's @lbc. Perhaps that comment is mist-phobic, in which case I apologise. Estelle tweets, how rude, Nick, to mock someone's punctuation grammar skills. Says more about you, Nick. What I think you mean there is it says more about you, Nick.
I'm very hot on precision. Pedantic about it, I am. Oxford, Aaron.
Hi, Nick.
Aaron.
How are you?
Great, mate.
So I was at the start of your show. You were talking about how younger people need to get involved in terms of to change the political sphere at the moment. But I was wondering, how do you think younger people should get engaged?
Vote.
Well, yeah, that would be a good end point. But to get them there in the first place,
well, just do it. I mean, they don't need persuading. Just blooming well do it. If you do not vote, then you will be led by those that shout the loudest.
I mean, you're right, but the problem I've found is that a lot of young people are quite easily shut down by people older than them because they're a lot more persuasive and, like you said, shouting the loudest.
Yeah, well, just don't listen to them. Just turn up that hippity-hip-hop music and you won't be able to hear them anymore.
Yeah, that's true, but at the end of the day, not everyone has the independent thought. They grow up with their families and just believe what they say. They don't have the initiative to...
Are you kidding me? You believe what your... you agree with your mum and dad? No, you
not
don't.
anymore.
Well, see?
No,
exactly.
Yeah, but I don't feel like everyone follows the same path as I have in that sense.
It doesn't matter. I mean, you shouldn't need persuading. There shouldn't be treats involved. You should just blooming well do it.
But people don't care, and you need to make people care.
How can you not care? That's actually not true. But young people do care. It's just that they care about specific things.
But they don't see the bigger picture. That's the problem. And
what do you mean? What bigger picture?
Well, okay, so for example, Brexit. A lot of people, even I know myself, they don't understand how it affects them. That's the problem, and that comes down to education.
Well, not really, because education, perhaps, yeah. But to me, education implies that somebody else is telling you that, rather than you just blooming well look it up.
Well, I see education as learning to think for yourself.
Well, yeah, I suppose so. That sounds a bit dangerous.
That's the idea of university, isn't it?
I think that's what I thought university was going to be like. But when I got there, it was pretty much just like school. They tell you what the facts are, according to them, and they just want you to repeat it parrot style. So there was precious little personal, original thought required.
Yeah, that's a sad reality, isn't it? I mean, yeah, most people just thought about it thereafter.
Oh, you just disappeared there for a moment. It's like an echoing silence.
Oh dear.
Most people just, and then we heard no more for a little while there. You just faded away and radiated. But anyway, just don't look for like positive reinforcement. Just blooming well get out there and do it.
I'm just speaking on behalf of other people my age. That I know that myself.
Right. Well, what about climate change?
Well, climate change, everyone seems to be engaged in, but
right.
At the same time, they don't want to sacrifice the luxuries that damage the climate.
Of course, yes, yeah, absolutely. People want the world to be clean and a better place, but they don't want themselves personally to have to suffer in order to get it that way. Yeah, but people are engaged with climate change, and all this stuff matters. I very much doubt that Nigel Farage's new party has got a policy on climate change. I mean, I wouldn't think so. It'd be down at the bottom of their list, I would think.
I don't think they have a policy for a lot of things from what I've seen.
Well, they're brand spanking new. They made a big mistake. I have mentioned that before, and I'll get to that in a minute. But pick a party that actually corresponds to what you believe in, and what you can't just be completely disinterested in politics. You can't just write it all off. No, everybody's interested in something. So pick one and then vote for the party that most closely corresponds to your needs and wishes.
But in human nature, we contradict ourselves.
Are you saying but? Are you saying but to me? No buts. Just get out there and do it.
We always contradict ourselves, though, don't we? We all, there's times where I've had a thought which is maybe supporting Brexit, and then another time I'm like, no, that's absolutely ridiculous. We keep changing our minds. That's our problem.
Well, I don't think that's most people's problem. I think most people made their decision 3 years ago based on no information of any kind whatsoever, and have refused to even countenance the idea that they would change their minds. So that's just you. That's just the free thinker, Aaron. I think you're going to have to pick a side.
Well, I found with Brexit, I think Einstein once said, if you can't explain something to a 6-year-old, you don't understand it. And I've had nobody come up to me with a really good explanation of what Brexit is. I don't know anyone who's read the whole 500-page document.
Even the people that wrote it haven't read it.
That's extremely worrying. Not even a spell check.
Don't look to Albert Einstein for wisdom. The man was an idiot. What he knew about science, you could write in the back of a stamp. But anyway, Aaron, I've got to go. Thanks a lot, mate. 0345 6060 973. Yeah, the kids are all up and animated about climate change. Well, that's good. So when the next elections are coming around, just pick a party that most closely represents your feelings about climate change. The effects of climate change will probably make Brexit seem like a tea party. It won't make any difference when the waves are lapping at your eyebrows. And they're going to start ramping it up a bit. There was a march, there were many marches actually just the other day. Students across the UK took to the streets yesterday to call for the government to tackle the climate change crisis. And the government said no. And furthermore, they said, no. I think their collective response was to pat these kids on the head and tell them to go home and not worry about it. But students had to do this, because grown-ups certainly won't going to make the government act to tackle the climate change crisis. And there were 30 countries across the globe that also held events, places like New Delhi and Istanbul and Helsinki, wherever that is. And there was all sorts of people there. David Attenborough was there. He said, you don't solve anything by striking, but you do change opinion, and you do change politicians' opinion, and that's why strikes are worthwhile, thereby kind of undermining his own argument. So you do solve things by striking. And a march in London brought Oxford Street to a standstill, apparently, but, Oxford Street is always at a standstill. It's one giant line of motionless buses from one end to the other. You could walk the entire length of Oxford Street on the rooftops of stationary buses. But this small fact didn't deter the authorities, who threatened to harass people that were there. One organiser said, the police tried to frighten us with arrests, but we just moved on. We are really sorry for everyone who did have issues with us, but unfortunately this is what we have to do to get our point across to the government. He said,
I am very sorry that I screwed up.
Yeah, but you didn't. Bringing this to our attention. Because we're distracted by shiny objects. Even dull objects like the dullest object in the drawer. Brexit.
Boring.
It sucked all the oxygen out of the room. And there's precious little oxygen left. We need all that we can get. Cambridge Schools Eco Council, the local children's organisation behind the strikes, said, we have inherited a system which fuels the climate crisis that is threatening our future. We've done little to contribute to climate change, and yet we, the people, are going to suffer the consequences of it. Equally, the poorest children on Earth are nowadays suffering the worst impacts of a climate crisis that's been fueled by the economy of the richest countries. This is a climate emergency. Our youth strikes will continue until government takes notice and urgently acts to stop funding, subsidising and promoting fossil fuels, and invests in community-owned renewable energy, and includes the environmental crisis in our schools' curricula. We demand system change. We demand climate justice, they said. And the collective response from the grown-ups to that issue was, we don't wanna. The Swedes aren't flying as much as they used to. There's a thing in Sweden about not flying, doing your bit to protect the environment. They've been frequent flyers, Swedes have, and if you were in the perpetual darkness, as Swedes are, you'd be flying to get some sun too. But a growing number are changing their ways because of, specifically, air travel's impact on the climate. Swedish people, eh? Always so perfect. Flight shame. That's what they call it. Feeling guilt over the environmental effects of flying. And it's made them stop in great numbers. And it was a thing started by young people. Once again, we have the young to thank for trying to clear up the mess that made by the old. Greta Thunberg, 16 years old, a climate school striker, refuses to fly. She was the part of the impetus for this movement. And a growing number of public figures have vowed to stay on the ground, including Swedish television skiing commentator Bjorn Ferry, which is his real name and not just some random musical pairing of ABBA and Roxy Music that I just made up. You know Bjorn Ferry, don't you?
Rock and roll!
250 people working in the film industry signed an article in the country's biggest daily newspaper calling for Swedish film producers to limit shoots abroad. So all of your Scandi programs are going to be in perpetual darkness now because they ain't got no sun there. It's a wonder they're all so happy. Well, if you got to have a hot hygge with 6-foot blonde Swedes all the time, you'd be happy too. The World Wildlife Foundation published a survey indicating that nearly 1 in 5 Swedes had chosen to travel by rail rather than by air in order to minimise their environmental impact. And the trend was most noticeable among women and young people. It's always men that are the problem. No! Apparently, the average annual temperature rise worldwide is going up twice as fast in Sweden. I don't know why that might be. It's probably got something to do with science. That is going to be a country full of hot Swedes, literally. So, there you go, you see, some people are making an effort, even though we aren't. Can't be bothered. I don't want to, is our collective response. And they're going to ramp that up. Next week, have you seen what they're going to be doing next week? If you go down to central London next week, you're in for a big surprise.
And I did. But that's for another podcast. Coming up, a lady from Blackpool wants to complain about what the EU has done to Blackpool.
Who do you think you're talking to?
I'm talking to a person called Vivian in Blackpool. Vivian.
Hello.
Yes, madam.
Yes. What I wanted to say was, since the 1970s, I've worked all my working life, if you would. I'm retired now, but as far as my income tax that I've paid over all those years, a portion of it has gone to the EU. So that's one of the reasons that I wanted out of the European Union. It has done nothing for me all those years, and I get really frustrated when I think what's been paid to the European Union.
Vivian, it's done nothing for you?
No, nothing at all.
Right, well, what makes you say that?
Well...
You mean that nobody from the European Union has shown up on your doorbell, on your door, and rang your bell and given you money?
I live in Blackpool, and very little has ever come out of the European Union. It all goes down south pretty well.
Yeah, but that's not true, though.
Oh, it is?
But it isn't, Vivian.
Well, what's been done in Blackpool for us?
I've got no idea what's been done in Blackpool. I mean, I could look it up, but I'm doing a show at the moment. She wants me to do her homework for her.
Well, it hasn't impacted on me ever since we joined in the 1970s.
But you might as well say that you give money to the British government and they've done nothing for you.
Oh, yes, they have. They've done a lot for me as far as I'm concerned. But by the same token, what a lot of people don't realise either is that approximately 20% of the VAT that we pay goes back to the European Union. So 20 pence in every pound that you pay in VAT goes back to the European Union, and that hasn't been made clear either. Right. The VAT was introduced by the European Union. Up until then, we had a purchase tax that was paid on luxury goods, and that was it.
Any country can put their VAT at whatever level they want it to be at. There's got nothing to do with the European Union.
By the same token, when it was 5%, we paid a portion to the European Union. It's now at 20% here.
Approximately 43p per day per person. It's £153 per person per year, something like that. 153 quid is per person goes to the European Union. I'm telling you, these are the facts, Vivian.
Well,
£153 per person goes to the European Union, and what we get back from the European Union in benefits of being a member of their club is £1,000 per person per year.
No,
so
we don't.
You absolutely do. It's £153 per person per year to be in the club, and you get back from that £1,000 per person per year.
It cost me £15, and out of that...
What cost you £15? What cost you £15?
VAT.
What cost you £15?
Three batteries.
Batteries.
Yes, 3 batteries, and I...
Don't tell me what they're for. It's none of my business. I don't want to know. Don't want to know.
Garage door. The remote control
okay.
of my garage door.
Phew.
And they cost me £15.
Yeah, and that's the EU's fault, is it?
Well, it's not the EU's fault, but what I'm saying is out of that £15...
You're not listening to a word I'm saying, are you, Vivian? It's £153 per person to be a member of the club. That's how much money goes, and for that we get back £1,000 per person per year.
Well, that's not what the Office of National Statistics say.
Yes, it is. Well, what do you mean? Not what? Well, what do they say on this issue?
Well, most of our money that we pay into the European Union goes to 25, no, hang on, there's 4 that doesn't. 21.
Is this what the Office of National Statistics says?
23 countries out of the 27 get most of the money back that's paid into the European Union.
Yes, but it's not a two-way thing. We don't give money and then just wait for them to give money back. There are benefits of being in the club. I mean, you do understand that.
The club, well, I don't like being in that club.
You don't like being in a club that costs £153 a year, for which you get £1,000 back?
I don't.
Well, that's madness, Vivian. You're making no sense. But I do appreciate the call. And I hope you have a happy day. That makes no sense. It costs £153 a year and you get £1,000 back. Oh, I don't want that. And I don't know where to go from there. People have made their mind up based on no information of any kind whatsoever, based purely on prejudice, and you cannot instill in them any facts. They just won't hear it. We pay about £9 to £10 billion a year for membership of the EU. That's 18.6 billion minus the rebate that we got of 5.6 billion. That's 13 billion, and minus the 4 billion that comes back from the EU directly to the public and private sector. So that's about £9 to £10 billion a year, or about 5 days' receipt of taxes that the government brings in. That's the cost of being a member of the EU. 5 days' tax receipts. £9 to £10 billion a year. Now, the net benefit of EU membership is worth about 4 to 5% of GDP to the UK, or about £62 to £78 billion a year. Now, if you get out a giant calculator and you work it out, it's about £145 per person per year, and the benefit of being in the club is £1,000 per person per year. If you gave me £145 and I gave you back £1,000, you'd be HAPPY, right? Unless you have made up your mind that you are ideologically opposed to money. It don't make no sense. Felicity emails, there's a whole article on the Blackpool Gazette on what the EU has done for Blackpool. Well, give us a link. Have you got a link there? Get it up on my screen. Please. Giving out orders. Rude. The Blackpool Gazette, you say? I bet the EU's poured no end of money into Blackpool. I mean, they've got, they've got the thing that goes, I've got no idea. They've got a nice ballroom, I know that. They've got you need an ad blocker. What does that mean?
You can't get on it because we have, I don't really know, but I've got to turn some ad blocker off.
Well, turn it off then. You don't know how to do it. God. It's like we've got trainees working on this show. 0345. I'll do it myself. Not that I'm complaining about it or anything. Blackpool Gazette. Well, I don't know why I'm bothering to look at this, because it's not going to be on the front page, is it? But I'll try. Leave it with me. Mal in Belfast is very angry and texts, Nick, didn't you know that over this past 100 years we have destroyed the Earth on our path through history, and that if we don't stop drilling for all fossil fuels, etc., we are going to melt under extreme heat? I'm melting. Never anything said about past ice ages without our input, or that we are on a globe hurtling through our solar system without our control. It's a joke. It's a manufactured hype. Oh, God, he's one of these people. You should know, by the way, that half of these words are in capital letters, and every sentence, such as they are, ends with 5 exclamation marks. You know, like he's shouting at me. It's a manufactured hype for our age, and it is ridiculous. We have no control. Anyone who thinks otherwise is a nutter. We should always recycle, etc., but we do not control the Earth or solar system. It does what it wants. Mal, you're an idiot. And I mean that with the greatest respect. Well, you know, every now and again, I just can't stand it anymore. I'm trying to be polite, but occasionally politeness fails me. I mean, all I heard between my ears as I was reading that was... Yeah. Please don't vote, Mal. Everybody should vote except for Mal. 0345 6 or reproduce for that matter. Please, we're begging you, for the benefit of the human race. Don't pass those genes on. 0345 6060 973, text 84850.
Yes, that's really important, Mal. Promise me you won't. And that's it. If you subscribe to this podcast, you'll find the next episode gets squirted up your life as though by magic on Mondays. And don't forget the podcast that I do with Carol McGiffin, Which is a Right Laugh. If you really want a good introduction to it, get the one that's called Carol Does Her Nut. She is hilarious. It's a podcast in which she and I, Carol McGiffin and me, try to solve people's problems while laughing like drains. We have a lot of fun, and I think you'll find it amusing. And you can get that where you got this. Ask for it by name, What's Your Problem, with Nick and Carol. And don't forget that you can also hear the whole show that I do on the radio. It's a podcast called The Whole Show. We strip the ads out and the news out, and a 3-hour show becomes much, much smaller. It's bite-sized. And you can get that where you got this too. Just do an internet search on my name, Nick Abbot, and podcasts, and all will become clear. And I'll be back on the radio, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night at 10. And until then, I'll be seeing you.
Bye-bye.